So as you all know, today we're talking about maintaining abstinence while dating, which is a challenge for those who have chosen abstinence and do want to get out there, meet someone, and get married. So sometimes they can feel like they're not in alignment or more challenging than they should be. So if you do want to share during or you have a question, please raise your virtual hand and we'll try to get to everyone at some point as we go through. Okay. So the first thing that we need to do is to be clear on the definition of abstinence. And so there's a bit of a discussion about that, but starting first, the couple of folks were very kind to be clear on the difference between celibacy and abstinence. These terms are commonly used interchangeably. They are not actually the same, but they are used interchangeably. If you've watched any videos or conversations, talk shows, what have you, they are used interchangeably. But most often when people are talking, they are talking about abstinence and not actually celibacy, because they are talking about not having sexual relations outside of marriage, but that they will be getting married or do desire to get married. And so that difference is important to note. However, in the everyday life of any of the conversations that you'll hear, they are used interchangeably. So you just want to keep that in mind. Whichever term used, what does avoiding sexual relations mean to you as an individual? That's what's important. What does it really mean to you as far as what your limits are, what your boundaries are, what you are or are not comfortable, willing, believing God is accepting or in agreement with what you're doing. That belief impacts the decisions that you make on the path of if this is something that you choose to do. So I do want to just share that most all of these speakers have chosen to abstain. I have one little clip that is someone who's married and that they're speaking just from their perspective. But and I did try to choose more men than women because it often comes up that women are trying to abstain and men aren't trying to do it. And so I worked hard for y'all, okay? I wanted to make sure that I represented and what was being shared would be edifying. All right.
You mentioned the pure life before and abstaining from sex. How long have you been doing that?
Shoot, man, I've been when I say the pure life, abstaining from sex is one thing. So it's crazy because there's different levels of purity. See, I'm on a tip of you could be abstaining from sex, but you could still not be living a pure life. You know what I mean? It's about to get real deep. Let me make sure everyone's prepared for this. All right. So you could be abstaining from sex, but if you still masturbating, you hear me? If you still like producing, that feeling, then I don't think that's living a pure life. That's big right there, man. If you know what I mean? So abstaining from sex, I've been able to do that for a minute, you know what I mean? I've had my bouts with that. But that has been much easier to conquer than just saying I'm gonna live the full pure life. And that's the mission I'm on currently. So yeah, and I see the light at the end of the tunnel to where I see like, yo, I could really do this. They got certain battles that it's just like, yo, I just can't bench press 500 pounds. Like, look how skinny I am. Like, I just can't, you know what I mean? But with this, I see that like, yo, I think I could really do this, you know what I mean? And I'm not doing it for other people. Like, this don't have nothing to do with nobody else. I'm doing it because I think it's gonna truly unlock, you know, a side of me, like a level of strength, a level of like consciousness, just a level of literally purity that's gonna open up, you know, doors that I feel like I want to experience that before I die, you know. And I mean, I want to get married sooner than later, because I'm not trying to be a monk. You hear me? Like, I'm not trying to just, oh, I enjoy this, you know what I mean? But I mean, literally, I'm just trying to evolve, man.
Okay. So D1 is a rap artist who is well known, especially in New Orleans, for being Christian, for promoting a clean or pure life and abstinence. And that he, I tried to kind of give different ages too, but a critical aspect to being abstinent or maintaining abstinence is self-discipline. So,
You mentioned
oops. So when you're looking at having that self-discipline, it's important to understand your motivations, what causes you, what's behind your desire, essentially. If you're challenged in the area of being abstinent, what is really the motivation or the desire to have sex? It seems like a really simple question. Like, of course, it's pleasure. That's the reason. But that's a little bit of a superficial view of it, because there are other payoffs involved in sexual intimacy, and it's different for different people. Certainly pleasure is a part of it, but there are a number of things that you can do that are pleasurable that you are able to not do and be fine. So understanding yourself and understanding how you get your gratification out of that experience. Is it connecting with another person? Is it a stress reliever? Is it just that you're feeling like it's going to deepen your relationship with that person? What else is there to it besides it just simply being physically enjoyable experience? So that part is going to help you to figure out, okay, now that I understand what my motivations are, what I'm kind of getting out of it besides just the immediate gratification part, then you can start looking at how you can fulfill some of those things in more constructive or productive ways. That's going to be different for different people because of motivations and because of what you actually get out of doing other things. So here are some things that are just suggestions based on kind of the science of it and the faith part of it. So of course, praying, Jesus is always available. And sometimes we get in situations where we need that to just kind of hold us together because we're very tempted. And it's great to have a friend to talk to. Jesus is always available to talk to. There's scientifically speaking, you get an endorphin boost from the experience. So you can get it from other things. And if you find yourself having kind of these ups and downs emotionally, that may be because you are lacking that endorphin boost. And you can get that from exercising. You can get that from different activities that will give you some sense of accomplishment, gratification, sometimes just wearing yourself out, essentially, getting that extra energy out. Immersing yourself in nature, going on nature walks, or just going to different things that you can experience God's creation and get the fresh air, get that outdoor experience. And hobbies and sports are another thing that gives you a sense of accomplishment, gives you that endorphin boost. If you don't have any hobbies, it's always good to have something to kind of have an outlet. And one of the things that is really important, and we'll talk about it again, is you're wanting to find people who are in agreement with your mindset. It's very difficult to be on an island with what your intentions or your desires are for your life. It's very helpful to have that support, to have someone or others who are in support of how you feel. Because we are human, and sexual intimacy, the desire is a part of being a person, it's part of being alive. I mean, it's partly procreation, partly just a part of our body, science, hormones, etc. So best intentions are not going to be enough. You just saying, this is what I'm going to do is not going to be enough. You have to have a plan, you have to have a strategy, and you have to be very specific in your intentions. And so having something to do when knowing what tempts you, knowing what you can do to kind of take the edge off of that temptation, those are going to be important tools for you in being able to maintain that decision. And when you do have those strategies, then you are able to be more methodical. You're able to think things through a little better, because when we do get into hormones, emotions, it affects our rational thought. It affects our decision making. So you have to kind of have that thought through before you get into the situation. All right. Some of you may or may not know Brian Head Welch. He is one of the founding members of the band Korn. And I thought that this was a good one to include, because we know that in certain jobs, certain industries, temptation is at a level that is totally beyond what we could even conceive of. I mean, we have our little everyday situations, but when you're a very famous singer, actor, anybody that has the opportunity to be exposed and offered all the time whatever they want, essentially, to make a choice not to indulge is way beyond what we normally would think of as temptation.
I love what you said, because to explain it to people about the why and what it means.
Yeah.
Because in 1 Corinthians 6, it talks about, Paul is talking to the church 2,000 years ago, and look, it hasn't changed. They were going, getting together and having sex. There's prostitutes, and
right.
And he's like, he's like, do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit? Do you not know that your body is a member of Christ himself? He actually says.
Yeah.
He says, do I then take my body and unite it with a prostitute? Never. And he goes, but he who joins himself with the Lord is one spirit with
The
him.
metal monk is preaching.
You know what I'm saying?
He came out on.
So he said, but he says you're one spirit with Jesus. So he says, would you then take Jesus's body and unite with a prostitute? That's what you're doing.
And everybody would say
That's
that's
what it says.
heresy.
You're
Like,
preaching.
whoa, yeah.
That's just what it says,
So you made a decision, though. I think you need to share this, because I guess you would be like the hard rock Tim Tebow. Because there's only a couple Christians out there that everybody knows that are like living that life.
I
But
just almost got down on one knee.
right there, just Tebow right now.
Yes.
Well, Tim's a great guy, and I've talked to him about this too, because that can't be easy. And I would think in your situation, like literally being a rock star, going to shows, there are ample opportunities. But you made a decision that since you're going to be single and set yourself apart for the Lord, that celibacy goes with that.
Yeah. Here's what it is. His presence. I don't want to lose his presence, God forgives everything.
Right.
He's really kind. I mean, it's almost 70% of the people, I guess, are having sex. We just found out in the church. Sure. He forgives, but at the same time, like, I'm serious about my faith. I'm serious about my relationship with the Lord, and I don't tell people what to do, but for me, I want to have his presence more than I want to have my pleasures.
So Brian, his self-discipline goes beyond abstinence. He was fully indoctrinated into all the pitfalls of the entertainment industry. He had drugs, all kinds of things. And he attributes to his deliverance from those things to his relationship with God. And so when we are trying to make a decision, the ability to stick with a decision is really being connected to why the decision was made. What is it? It's not enough to say, well, this is just what God wants, or because I want to go to heaven. That's not enough of a reason. You have to internalize that reason for yourself. And Brian explained what his, connection to it is, that the pleasure of God's presence, that feeling of joy that he gets from having that connection with God is more important. So he's like made this decision that, okay, I can't have both. So which one am I going to choose? That is his decision. That's his choice. Whatever it is for you, you just have to dig deeper and figure out, okay, what does this really mean for me? Why am I making this decision? Why is it important? Is God is telling you that this is what you should do? And you kind of look at, okay, I accept God that this is what you're saying that I need to do. And of course, you want to pray for his help in that. And Jesus, as I said, you can pray anytime for that support. But like I said, when you are in your emotions, when you're being tempted, when your hormones are shifting, it's hard to think clearly of something abstract. And sometimes we kind of get a little gray on, well, this is not really sex, or different things that are going to muddy the waters, essentially. So you want to have, in your clear, sober mind, you want to make sure that you have methodically laid out, this is what I believe God is telling me. This is what my decision is going to be. This is why I'm making this decision. This is what I believe is why it's important. This is how it's going to impact my life. These are how I'm going to change the choices that I make, the people that I consort with, the places that I go, think it all the way through. Think it all the way through. I'm trying to keep up with the chat, but you guys are throwing too many things out. So I apologize if I'm missing anything. I'm gonna rely on Jay or one of the other leaders to help me out if something comes up I need to point out. Okay, so while many choose abstinence, how they define abstinence differs from person to person.
I love what you said.
And so what defines sex? Like, what is it actually? What's sexual intimacy? Where there's so many different opinions. And it was really interesting as I was preparing for this, and I was reading and listening to different videos and things like that. And what I found to be really surprising was how frequently you would read or listen to someone talking about it. And then at some point, like halfway or towards the end, it came up kind of that, oh, you're just not actually having intercourse, but you're doing everything else. Or, some compromise essentially on that, where it's not a true abstaining or staying away from altogether, but just that, oh, I'll do everything but this type of a thing. And so it just became really clear to me that everyone may have a different opinion of what abstinence actually means, like what that looks like, as far as what is okay and what is not okay. So I broke it down to this: sexual arousal. And the reason why I put it at that is because it's such a slippery slope when you do things that just bring up those feelings to begin with. You already are having to deal with them without any encouragement. So if you're actually putting yourself in a position of being sexually aroused, it's almost starting a ticking time bomb. It's only a matter of time before it continues to escalate to something more than what you initially intended. So you want to just be really mindful of that, because it's what it reminds me of is when you were a kid and you were told you couldn't do something, and so you found a way to do really doing it, but not by the letter of the law doing it. Well, I was told that I couldn't go outside after I got home from school. So instead of going straight home, you like take the long walk to the house, because once you go in, you can't come back out. So you're like, well, I didn't go back out, but you were supposed to go straight home, and instead you just, so that's kind of how I look at it, as that you're really doing something that is sexual. It's not intercourse, but it is sexual. And so if it's causing you to be aroused, if it's giving you the feelings and sensations, as Dee once said, the feeling, then it's sexual, and it will likely lead to intercourse at some point, but it's still putting you in a place where you're compromising that decision to abstain or stay away from premarital sex. So when you figure out for yourself what defines sex, then you want to look at, okay, what are the boundaries for that? As in, for some people, they are not as easily aroused, or it's not as big of a deal. And you have to be cognizant of not just yours, but that other person, because their boundaries or what arouses them may be different. And you don't want to tempt somebody else just because you're fine with it. So there are some who say, well, I won't even give a full on hug. It needs to be a side hug. Or they won't kiss, or, just different things. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to be clear with yourself on what is going to be difficult for you. And it may not be the same every day. Sometimes you may be feeling more weak than other times, but you have to be honest with yourself about it, because it only, it's so easy to shift or to switch, thinking, well, normally I'm fine. If you're not that day, your hormones are in a different place or whatever, then you need to be aware of that. And so I think somebody, or I think maybe it was Danny, had mentioned about scripture. So that this is where we're going now with the scripture. Okay. So there obviously are a lot of scriptures on sex, or premarital sex, or abstinence, or however you want to categorize it. I, of course, not esteemed to give them all, but I did try to pick out some that I thought were poignant for the discussion. And these are telling you in various ways that this is something that you should, not do. But, excuse me, I think in your toolbox of staying abstinent, you do need to figure out which ones connect to you in your mind state and what you firmly believe in, that you can kind of refer to in those moments when you need to just kind of reaffirm yourself of, okay, let me read what the word says. Because I mean, if you're in a situation where you got to read them all, then you probably want to phone a friend. But hopefully you have something that you can just pull out and say, this is kind of bring you back to center on where God has you, what is your focus, what you're supposed to be doing. Stan. These are a few of them. Hebrews 13:4, marriage is honorable and all, and the bed undefiled. But whoremongers and adulterers God will judge. The works of the flesh are manifest, and all of these different things. One thing that is kind of a consistent theme in the scriptures that's talking about it is going back to what we were saying earlier, self-discipline. Being disciplined in yourself. So not just, we're talking about abstinence from sex in this conversation, but it is an abstinence from things that are of the flesh. Things like that are an overindulgence, essentially, or that are going to corrupt you and affect you in the spirit. So drunkenness, the gluttony, different things that are overindulgence of things that are not healthy or not good for you and your spirit. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but I wanted to at least share that the different scriptures that kind of really speak to being protected or protecting yourself in your mind, body, and spirit from things that are going to be harmful to you. And understanding in the scripture that Brian Welch was talking about here at the very bottom, 1 Corinthians 6:15-20, that's also hearkening to other scriptures that talk about how we're a part of Christ. And so what you would not do because you're a part of Christ's body, that you don't want to defile him, or you don't want to corrupt him by doing something that is not of him. All right. So how can the pitfalls be avoided? How can we keep our choice, our decisions strong and affirmed in the face of dating, in the face of going into these situations where we're meeting people that we're attracted to? We want to have fun. We want to go out. We want to meet people, hopefully meet someone that we can ultimately marry. So how do we get through those steps? How do we go through those things?
Now, what other elements of the pure life, aside from abstaining sex, are maybe some points too?
Points. Well, I think you like a lot of people struggle with porn. I could sit here and look the camera right in the eye and say I've never watched porn my whole life. So I have a vivid imagination because I'm an artist. I take nothing and I paint this beautiful picture out of nothing. My imagination is vivid. With that being said, I never needed to watch something, I could go based on past memories, just memories from things I've done or experienced, and that was everything. Everything lives up here, This could be your greatest asset or your biggest enemy, like what lies inside your brain. So I think that staying away from porn, that's big for a lot of people. So that's an element of the pure life. I think that not getting to the part where you just like lusting, over people, So when you think about the type of female, for example, that you want to be with, you don't want to be with somebody who you want to be attracted to them, madly attracted to them, but you don't want it to be somebody who they're just like a walking bowl of just lust, they just emit this vibe from them that's like giving off just sex and just, all this type of stuff. I don't think, you don't want to do that. That's not going to be cool because we're humans. I am a human. Trust me. I am a human. H-U man, for real. So, I can easily succumb to any temptation that anybody else can. So that's part of it is, it's like if you don't want to fall off the cliff, don't walk on the edge. You heard me? Don't walk on the edge if you don't want to fall off the cliff. So that's elements to it. Even musically, bro. Musically. I can't listen to different R&B songs that come on that's just very, very sexually explicit. I just can't. So some artists, I respect them as artists, and I know these dudes personally, some of the top R&B artists in the game, but listening to their music where they talking explicitly about sex and all that, it has no place in my ear at this point. Like, I just can't do it. As far as with what you watch, and I'm not even talking about porn, but just overall, like I just try to stay in this space. I just try to stay. It's like growing up in New Orleans. My mama used to tell me like certain parts of the city not to go in. You know what I mean? And she knew why. You know, cause you liable to see somebody get killed. You liable to get killed yourself. Like, she knew. And I just see that as an adult, that there's just certain things that you want to stay away from if you're trying to really purify your mind and your body. You feel me? So that's it. But I'm in an industry where it's everywhere. You know what I mean? It's literally everywhere. So I'm trying to carve out this little bubble within this industry where I still exist in it, but I'm not letting it infiltrate, my spirit and my sanity and my peace that I have.
So I know we already heard from D1, but one of the reasons I wanted to play this clip was because he said a couple of things that were really good. One, to avoid temptation. Don't even open up yourself to temptation by watching certain things, listening to certain things that are going to bring up things that you are trying to avoid. And also that you want to just really know where you are, know your weaknesses, like really understanding yourself and what that looks like for you. Mustafa.
Hey, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. I hope I didn't cut you off. That's why I raised my hand. I was hoping for you to. Oh, okay. Yeah. How's everybody doing? Yeah. Thank you for this talk. I think it's a wonderful talk to have, especially nowadays. Now, when we talk about temptation, and by no means, as I say anything here, I'm not trying to offend anybody. But what I've noticed, especially in our modern time, is that it seems to be much more difficult than it was before to abstain. Now, I think one of the brothers mentioned, I think his name is Stan. Forgive me if I missed it, but he said, like, once you've had good sexual encounters or something like that, it'd be very hard for you afterwards to then abstain versus someone who has never had sex before, right? Who may not necessarily have an understanding of what it feels like and things like that. And so those are the differences. Now, a couple of things, especially from a man's perspective. I'm a guy, so I can only really speak for men, and feel free to add. But that temptation, I think one key is to really stay away from Instagram. Literally, stay away from Instagram as a man, because the amount of booty pics I see from women is almost crazy. It's insane. And to me, there could be many reasons for it. In terms of from a woman's perspective, why that may be the case. But that's why trying to get away from putting any blame or anything like that on a woman's perspective, fellas, just stay away from Instagram. Stay away from Instagram. Instagram will then lead you to doing other things that you may not want to do. That involves pornography. That involves encountering certain kind of strange women that you have no business encountering. Things like that. So when it comes to temptation, I think a major key is social media, imagery, Instagram. Instagram is really out of control. That's the best way I can describe it. It's out of control. And so that's something that I would say for sure. And then the other thing is just reiterating that it's very hard. Once you've had sex, it's very hard to then say, hey, let me stay away from it with all the temptation that surrounds us. So I just wanted to add that.
Thanks, Mustafa. A couple of things. So one, just to finish what I was saying about D1 that ties into what you were saying, you're keeping yourself mentally in a certain place or a certain position, not creating temptation for yourself, knowing where not to go. The benefit of having had sex is that you really have a better understanding of what people are saying when they're explaining to you why, what that means, like walking on the edge, essentially. You know what it does to you. You know probably how it has hurt your relationships with people, how it's hurt yourself, how it's maybe caused a relationship that maybe would have been healthier to not be, how it has caused you to miss out on how great a person was because your focus was on the wrong thing. It adds dimension to the choice. I know for sure it's not easy because as a person who was married, and
Hey, somebody needs to mute because they Stan, I just muted you. I'm sorry. You just echoing through. You can unmute when Tashawn calls on you. I'm sorry, Tashawn. Go ahead.
No problem. Thanks, Jay. So when I became a widow, I was 27. And I was not done. So that was challenging. Because I had sex. I enjoyed sex. I had children. So that was not my plan. But yeah, I did come to understand why scripture says the things it does about the pitfalls and the dangers of making those choices. Because as great as those moments of pleasure were, the hurt that to myself or to, the relationship or other people overrode that. And it's kind of just having your priorities together and not feeling like that that criminal that keeps going to jail, that thinks, oh, I know what I did wrong, I'm going to do it different next time. No, every time you do the crime, there's going to be hurt, harm, and punishment behind it. And is it worth it? That's kind of, a grown person decision that you have to make is it worth it to do that? Is the full picture of, everything that comes out of it, is that moment worth the rest? What helped me during that time, and, I don't know, who all is here because I can't see everybody, but what helped me during that time was because I was the only parent for my children, it was really important to me that I not do anything to leave them with no parent. And so at that time, looking at, okay, I don't ever want to be like on my deathbed that I'm dying from, a sexually transmitted disease or anything like that, or, somebody that I trusted that I shouldn't have trusted that did something to me, and I leave my children because I just wanted that moment of pleasure. So that was, I understand it's very logical, rational. It's not always that easy, but that was what I continually tried to keep in mind was I have a huge responsibility, and I can't set that aside for, this other. And I'm not saying that I was always successful. I'm not saying that it was easy or any of that, because I'm not a person of vices. I don't drink. I don't, smoke. I don't do. Sex was my vice. So that was what would relieve my stress. That was, my outlet. That was, so to not have that, especially, having been married for, a better part of a decade and suddenly not, then it's very difficult. So I'm not saying it's not, but it's a journey, it's a path, and I didn't have a plan. And unfortunately in the church, it was for married people. If you were single, then, just pray. There was not a plan. There was not a guidance that was given on, like, okay, how do I actually get through this? And everybody knows I'm outspoken, so I definitely asked, like, what am I supposed to do with all of this? So again, you're oh, I'm sorry, Stan, did you want to go ahead before I go to the next slide?
You know what? I kind of lost my thoughts. So, go to the next slide. I'm good.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Now, what?
All right, so I mentioned earlier, and I definitely wanted to get into this deeper. Your sex success depends on you being honest with yourself, your self-discipline, being fortified by God, and the support of like-minded people. So one of the things we like here at CSC is that we're like-minded, we're coming together in our faith. What that looks like in our everyday lives may be different, but we all are united in our belief that, God is a part of our life, and He and Jesus is our strong support and our place of rest. So the power of the circle, having friends, family members, people that are going to defend, protect, support your choices when it comes to your walk. You don't want to have to sit there and defend your choices to people that are supposed to love and support you. So you want to kind of be clear on, all right, are they in opposition, of my choice, or are they in support of my choice? Because the level of trust that you have is going to be affected by that, because like I said, you're going to have vulnerable moments, and you don't want to be vulnerable around someone who's going to encourage you to do something that is conflicting with the choice that you've made for yourself. So you want someone, or you want people who respect your boundaries, respect your choices, support them, or maybe also walk in that walk, or they have, so they can encourage you further. And you want to avoid people who do not, by showing different behaviors. So I gave just a few of them, but people that are talking over you or interrupting you, that don't listen to what you're saying, that don't value your contribution or how you feel, that their behavior is in conflict with what they say. So they say they support you, but then the things that they do suggest that they're just giving you lip service. That they don't respect your boundaries. So you say, I'm okay, or I'm not okay with something, and then they just do whatever they want anyway. Or they talk about things that you're not comfortable with, even after you've explained to them, hey, that's not comfortable for me. I don't like that. That's a problem. And I put this one last, but I think it's important. If you are a believer and you do have a relationship with Christ, that you don't have people in your inner circle who don't have that same mentality. And the reason I say that is because they are not going to understand or follow or be able to actively support your decisions if it's Christ-based, if it's based in your faith. It's not to say that they're bad people or anything like that, but they're going to have a hard time really being able to go beyond the surface of support, and surface being, oh, that's great, you should do that. But actually speaking to, I guess I think of it the way of someone who says, I really hope that works out for you, versus someone who says, let's pray together. And so those points are things you want to especially consider when you're dating someone, or when you're deciding if you're going to date someone. You want someone who's going to respect your boundaries, respect your choices, support them actively, as in, if you say don't do this, that they're not going to take that as an instruction, like, oh, it arouses you to get kissed on your neck, so I'm going to kiss you on your neck. No, somebody that's saying, okay, I know that you don't like this, or this is a problem, so I'm going to make sure that I am not doing those things. And even in the moments where you may decide, oh, it's okay, that they're going to bring you back and say, no, I know that this is something that's important to you, and I don't want you to regret this later, so we're not going to do that. And the scripture that I put on here is the one that where it talks about King Solomon choosing wives from all these different places. And he was warned about not doing that, or well, he was warned about doing that because God was telling him, you know, you're tempting your faith and your belief in me by bringing in all these other faiths and beliefs. If you are going to stay on the path, if you're going to stay within your walk, you can't entertain all these other thought processes into your inner circle, because it will eventually erode you into believing or going off course, essentially. Oops, sorry. All right, so here we are. Dating strategies. Actually, like, what do I do? How do I date? I'm going to say safely. How do I date and not get into these pitfalls, these mistakes? So once you've fortified yourself with your self-awareness, you've got healthy boundaries and outlets for your feelings, and a strong support system, you can then kind of step out into, all right, I'm ready to date. I'm ready to, get out here. I've got, I'm fortified. I got a hedge of protection, all of that. So here are some things that, at least starting out, that you want to do just to kind of keep that protection around you. Group dating. So group dating is essentially where you're not doing one-on-one, but you're going out in groups. We go out in groups. It's not necessarily that we're dating, but it is an opportunity for you to not have that pressure of just one-on-one. You can still get to know people without having the same level of intimacy of it just being you and the other person. And so then you can also get to see how they interact with others, how they kind of conduct themselves, hearing their conversation, to get a better idea of, okay, are we on the same page? Or is this someone that I could possibly see myself getting to know better? Or are they exhibiting things that are not safe for me, or we're not really in alignment? Another thing that you want to do, as I said before, knowing, yourself, what the physical boundaries need to be, and being okay with that. I don't know if Toylan is on, but he had talked a few months ago about that communication. So if you are going to have boundaries like that, you do want to communicate that so the person doesn't have this misunderstanding of what your feelings are, where you just let them know, I'm not comfortable with this for whatever reason. And I say whatever reason, because it could be that this is just not what you're comfortable doing, or because it's a temptation, whatever it is, you just want to make sure that you're not sending them mixed signals where you're like pushing them away, but you actually are interested in them. And so with the time that you spend, if you do go on a group date or just one-on-one, you want to be really intentional about that time. You don't want to just kind of play it by ear or whatever. And so these are, again, things that you have to consider for yourself. If there's a time of day factor, like if it's in the afternoon, if it's at night, in the morning, if you find yourself more tempted at certain times of the day, then plan around that. If you feel that that you're fine for a certain length of time, then you want to plan around that. Sometimes, especially younger people, they have these never-ending dates where they kind of get together in the afternoon, and it's late into the evening, and they've been together all this time. Is that necessary? Is that going to cause a problem? So you want to be mindful of, like, how much time is your comfort level where you're like, okay, we had a good date. If we spend more time than X amount, then I know for myself that it starts to get too too close, too comfortable, too intimate. So it just is going in the wrong direction. So you want to kind of think about that. And then public areas is kind of a easy, safe net where it's you're one-on-one, but it's not the level of intimacy where anything can happen because you're at somebody's house or you're, alone somewhere and there's it's just really you and not, the fact that you're somewhere that maybe not appropriate for certain things to happen. So those are some things that you can kind of think about. Having an accountability partner, somebody who is of the same mind and is going to support your decision, that you can talk to and say, I'm struggling, or, I'm feeling whatever way. And like I said, they can pray with you. They can remind you of your decisions or why, or remember that last time and how bad that went, just helping you to keep focused on, where you said you wanted to go, what you wanted to do. And being really purposeful in your dating. So be deliberate, not laissez-faire, just kind of like, if you don't care, if you are being celibate where you have no intention of getting married or having sex and you just want to have a good time, then, that's one thing. But if you actually are dating with the intention of getting married, then be intentional about your actions. Be very deliberate about your choices and decisive. Be honest with yourself as well as other people. And whatever your standards are that you set, don't compromise them because that other person seems so great. This could be the one or what have you. Keep your standards. You should not compromise your morals or your values for anyone. That's not what compromise is. Compromise is, choosing a restaurant, not choosing your relationship with God over that person. So, or choosing that person over God. All right. So this next clip is something that comes up almost every session. So I decided to let Steve Harvey and Shamar Moore tell y'all what they think about when you should tell the person you're dating.
I think what's happening to you is you're breaking the celibacy information too quick. You want to get it out on the table so they know that's the wrong approach to it. I think what you have to do is refrain from the act of sex and from it going too far, and get a guy emotionally involved with you.
Right.
Once a man is emotionally attached to you, then you tell him, listen, I'm really saving myself for Mr. Right, and I want to wait until I'm married. You would be stunned at the men who would think you're Miss Right and would be willing to at least put forth an effort to try to wait. Now, is it going to be easy? No, on him or you. All these church people, they still human beings. I don't care what the title is. They still men.
You're right.
And so, yeah, go ahead.
And to your point, I believe that there is a way, because men love a challenge and men love mystery. And I think there is a way to be sexy and intimate without having sex.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
there is a way. There is a way. You just have to take your time and be spontaneous, be sexy. You can be intimate in conversation, intimate in feeling, intimate in just being together.
Yeah.
And then as Steve's saying, just say, you know what, all of this feels right, but I just want to take a little more time and leave it at that. And he'll either step up or he doesn't.
I'm telling you, man, men, you'd be surprised.
So I'm going to tell you guys, this has been said before in the group, and I didn't agree with it, but this is the thing that I found to be really interesting when I really thought about it. Why is it automatically assumed that we're going to have sex? Why is that the assumption? That I need to let you know that we're not. That is something that is, obviously it has a lot to do with where we are in society right now, but just like so many things in relationships, nothing is promised. There's no guarantee. Even if I'm not abstinent, there's no guarantee that I'm going to have sex with you. So there's.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I had a great part.
Are you talking to us, other Jay?
Yeah.
I think, okay. Yeah, so because I felt like, well, you're kind of misrepresenting yourself, but then I was like, you know what? There's no reason to assume that we're going to have sex. That's a huge assumption. That's a big thing. I mean, what else are you assuming? Nobody's like sitting there like rattling off, I'm not going to cook for you on the first date. You're not listing those things. So why is sex something that you need to like say when you meet someone on the first date? Well, I'm not going to have sex with you until we get married. You shouldn't be assuming that someone's going to have sex with you anyway. That's like a self-check thing that needs to happen. And that's, of course, this is all my opinion, but I just feel like there should not be assumptions made about what a person will or won't do based on what everybody else is doing. And especially something that is that personal, and something that is, not a casual thing. I mean, assuming that I'm gonna, get the tip or something like that, but assuming that I'm gonna have sex, that's a big thing. That's a huge, huge assumption. And if it's that important, then it should be on that person to ask. Not for the person to be like, oh, I just need to let you know that this is something, that I am or am not going to do. You should not assume that anybody's going to give you anything but their time when you're getting to know someone, because that's all that they're offering and that's all that you've asked for. Yeah, y'all are the chat's going too fast, so I'm gonna have to catch up.
I think.
All right. So I don't know who all knows Yvonne Orji, but she is in her 30s. And I haven't checked this year, but she's not only abstinent but a virgin, and she attributes her choice to her relationship with God. She got saved at 17, and she decided that she was going to wait. So her TED Talk was about the wait. And the reason I wanted to include this clip is because there is this sense that I hear often in our discussions and even outside of the group, where people are feeling like, well, if I don't, then what are my chances of finding someone? If I'm not willing to do something, if I'm just totally abstinent, then they're not going to want to date me, or I'm not going to find the right person. What's going to kind of happen? What are my chances, essentially? Excuse me. And I couldn't put her whole thing on here because she had a lot of good things to say. But I just I put this clip and the next one in to kind of talk about that.
But I don't mind the wait, because here's the thing about it. Like, I joke around a lot, but what the wait does is weed out the riffraffs. A lot of people think the wait is actually keeping me from my Prince Charming, but what the wait actually does is keep me away from these dudes. But what you mean by commitment though? Like commitment? Yeah, I don't have time for the foolishness, y'all. And so for me, if you ask, do I want to have sex? Of course I do. Like today, like right now, if you're here, like let me know. But that's just a short comfort, right? And sometimes you got to sacrifice short-term comforts to get long-term quality relationships that I want. Yeah, that's my face. That's the short-term comfort look. Like, it ain't always sexy, y'all, but it is sexy. And so for me right now at 33, what the wait is powerful. It's discipline. It's focus. It keeps the main thing the main thing. But
So I hear you, Cardo. Cardo is like hardcore. You need to say up front, it needs to be immediate. And I mean, I feel like wherever you are, you need to kind of have that conversation when it's comfortable for you. Every situation is going to be different. Like I said, some may ask you up front. Some may tell you up front. And sometimes it just seems like, you know what, based on this conversation, if I don't say something, then I feel like I'll be dishonest and not sharing right now. Like I'm going to be misleading someone. And so you need to make that decision in the moment. And if you just are hardcore, like, look, I'm not even in the mood to do or deal or say or whatever until I know that they're good with this. Because the thing is that there are other things that you kind of have is what you will or won't do. And we don't generally put all that stuff out there in the first conversation because it's just not the natural flow of getting to know someone to just kind of run down a list of do's and don'ts to a person you just met. But you definitely want to do what is, what is genuine and real to you, what's authentic, being your authentic self in that situation, and making sure that you are comfortable and hopefully that they're comfortable. So last thing, this is the last one. And then, everybody can speak freely, virtual hand raise. So when you do tell someone and they choose to not continue to see you, male or female, and I'm saying that because we've had plenty of men come on here and say that they have dealt with women who say that they're cool with it. And then they realize that he really meant it. He's really abstaining and he's really not going to do it. So it's not just, women dealing with men. But when you have that situation come up where you realize it's not going to work because they are not on the same page as you, they're not in agreement. So what do you do with that? That refusal for others to accept your choices.
You tell a man you're abstinent and he doesn't want to date you. It's not the abstinence itself that's pushing him away. It's, does he see enough value in you to make it worth it for him to embrace your abstinence? Now understand this, him not seeing the value doesn't mean you don't have the value. And to give you an analogy, if I'm selling a car and I have a Ferrari on the lot, there's gonna be people who pass by that Ferrari and say, man, this car is amazing, but I ain't got the money. There's going to be other cars that people that pass by and say, man, I would never spend that much money on this car. And there's going to be some people who pay the money and want the car. Now, when those people who say this ain't worth $100,000 pass that car or even complain to the dealership, do they go change the price of the car? Does it change the value of the car? No. Someone not seeing your value does not dictate your value. But understand that everyone's not going to embrace it. And that's okay. So don't confuse that. Don't think it's the abstinence pushing them away. It's okay, but what am I bringing to the table outside of my position of abstinence? So let's use a man. If I'm a man and I'm short, I'm out of shape, I'm broke, and I'm a mama's boy, all right? And I live with my mama, okay? And I try to convince you to entertain me despite being broke, all right? You're going to shut it down. And that man's going to say, you see, women don't want no man who ain't got no money. It's all about the money. It's all about the money. No, it's not about the money. You broke. You out of shape. You live with your mama. Like, there's all these other things that you ain't work on. But now, if you show that same woman a man who's in shape, got his stuff together, all right, and let's say, and when I say got his stuff together, he's educated, he's working on himself. He may not be rich, so he still could be broke, but he has ambition. He has work ethic. He's doing his things. His pool of women just jumped and expanded just like that. His brokenness did not stop him. His lack of balancing his other qualities to compensate for his brokenness stopped him. All right? So understand that don't just put it all on abstinence and men want sex. No, it's, am I truly walking in my true potential? Am I showing my true value? Do you value yourself the way you want any man to value you? No, somebody wants it. There are men out there who wish there were more women practicing abstinence, or just not being as out there. Society has us thinking the other way, but it's not true. So all that to say, understand that we have to work on ourselves and the overall value that we're bringing to the table, and not to ever pin it on one thing and think this is your crutch, this is why somebody doesn't want me. No, when you work on yourself as a whole, you will find more and more people being drawn to you.
All right. So that is it for the slides. And